Hey guys, Adam Perry here with TrueDFS, and I'm going to go over this small but newsy NHL 4-game DFS slate. There's a lot of news to look out for. It's not going to be an easy slate from that perspective, but hopefully we will get that all kind of sorted out. What we'll do what we've been doing, which is using projections to just take a look at where things look, where the chalk's going to be. We could do like a hand build just for funsies. Then we're going to look at the slate and Saber Sim. We'll run contest sims, play-by-play sims, get a portfolio of lineups for some of the MME stuff, maybe for a single entry, get a grasp on how things are looking. And then I want to go over, after going over all that, I want to go over like yesterday's slate, and we'll see what graded well. We've been doing this now last week or so and looking at what lineups grade the best in the various contests and getting an idea for how that then affects our builds. And we've had some success with that. So I'm going to keep doing that, and I'll do that towards the end, and we'll see what it gets us. So let's get started. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us out. So just going through the news real quick. Right off the bat, you've got this Tyson Forster news. I don't know if DFO has him in yet, but he's going to be, so they have the kind of tag on him. SaberSim has Forster out, so we're going to need to get an update on that. Unfortunately, you may not get an update in that till about 6 when the line rushes come out, and you may get different lines. So that's something to look out for. Now, unfortunately, the same thing goes for Tampa. So Tampa's got Hedman out, so we're not going to know all of their lines. We've got new lines in Jersey, you could see here, but we've got them in advance at least. But you're not going to know the Hedman news. Hyman's coming back. That's something to look out for in the coming days. Not on this slate. Burakovsky in the late night hammer with the let's call them the White Sox, with the Blackhawks is going to be a tough one, right? So Dickinson's out. Burakovsky's a game time decision. If Burakovsky's not in, Green's going to take his place on the power play. That's where he skated in practice. Green's a little cheaper, so you're going to have to save money if you want to go up to Burakovsky if he's in. I imagine we're going to get some Blackhawks. They're pretty cheap. You could do a lot with them. You know, if you want to play like the power play, the full stack, which we tend to like and tends to grade real well. Just say we threw in Knight just to make it easy. You can kind of do anything with them. And then it's not hard to go down to Green, but you're going to have that in the util if you use your center spot. So it's going to be tough. Late swap's going to matter on this slate. Looking at news right before lock's going to matter because we're not going to have Tampa lines. Sorelli might be out. That might really jumble their lines. Hedman's out, so it might jumble their D pairings. So there's a lot to look out for. If you look at projections, it's like Utah bunching up as the top values. I imagine Utah's going to be chalky, though, too, especially as you get into single entry and stuff. You could still do a lot with them, but they're not cheap, but they project really well in a really good spot, probably the best spot on the slate, and they're a good team. So, doing like what Sheets does, you could kind of get a feel for what looks good projection-wise, value score-wise, and it's these correlated Keller, Cooley, Schmaltz all in the power play, all looking really good in the projections. We'll see what you could do around with them. If you go Keller, Schmaltz, Cooley, you could throw Gunther in if you want. You could throw in Vimelka just to get a goalie in there for now. You can still do a little bit around them, right? You can get in. If Green ends up on the power play, he's a really good value. You could get in some of this Buffalo value, like Byram's going to be on the power play. Oh, we can't do that against Vimelka, so let's say we took out Vimelka. Just for the sake of it, put that in. You could still do quite a bit even with a Utah stack. So they're grading well. They're going to look good. I imagine in our portfolio we get a healthy dose of them, just because we're playing to not lose our lunch with the portfolio manager, and it's going to diversify us smartly. So we'll probably get some lower probability plays and some higher ones like Utah. But there you have a look at some of the things you can do. You can get Philly in pretty cheap. You're not going to be 100% sure on lines is kind of the issue. You can get Buffalo in pretty cheap, but their power play is not. It's going across 3 lines, so that's kind of an issue there. The correlation is a little bit weaker, but you can play the even strength in Buffalo. And then Tampa, even Tampa, you can get in the main stuff because of the cheap guys on the power play. If you want to throw them in, you throw in a Bjorkstrand and a min-price Radish. Remember we had Radish for some reason at wing. Just for the sake of it, say you want to correlate the goalie, then you could do a whole lot. Can you get in a power play? No, not quite, but it's a whole lot you could do. You can get in some of the Utah. Too bad you can't play all of them, but so a lot you could do on this slate. We'll see where SaberSim gets us, but we know where we could get. We could get to some of the higher price stuff without having to sacrifice too much. So I imagine that like Utah, Tampa, Jersey, these spots get pretty chalky in single entry, but we shall see. Let's do a build before we look at past results. Let's build using SaberSim. Now, what we have seen in past results is that 4-3 and above just grades phenomenally, extraordinarily well compared to the rest of the stuff. And even the 5s with one-offs don't. So I'm just going to demand them in my pool. And you could say, well, why not build the others, see what it's getting to, and just cross them off after? Well, because I only get 5,000 lineups. So I want to make them count. I don't want, those. I don't want to pay for 500 3 3s and 2 2s and all these things where only 50 of them grade out as plus EV. And then I spent 450 lineups in my pool that have no shot of being candidate lineups. So I only get 5,000. So I want to make them count with the best candidate lineups I can, with ones that I know are going to show up as plus EV. And this is how I do it. So we'll get this rolling and we'll see. I plugged in like a mini max. I plugged in the hip check. I plugged in the $12 single entry. I think I've got the flagship in here. So we'll run a portfolio and just see where we get to in all of them. I'll spread it. So I just put in one, but we'll make it like 150 max for these, or however many the contest is. So let's see. Calculating, boom, boom. And we want one group per contest. Okay, let's get all these going. And then we'll do this so often. So we want to play, let's say we're running, the flagship is 61 entries. So say we've got 61 in there, 150 in the mini max is 211, and then we'll just do for 211 and 20, 231, 232. Say we're running 232 lineups across these, right? That's the 150 max for the mini max, 61 entries into the flagship, 1 into our single entry, and 20 into the 20 max hip check. Now let's run a portfolio and see what it looks like. We'll go by exposure, but we'll also go by dollar. Sorting by dollar exposure is probably the best way to do this. Remember, guys, if you're out there, like and subscribe. Helps us out. Say hello in the chat. Drop me a line. So let's see. We're not entry exposure. Okay. So yeah, the Radish really comes up. He's a good value. Going to get the he's going to probably get more ice time too, because they're not going. They went 11-7. Let's make sure Tampa is not going 11-7 again. Even if they are, he's going to come up as a good value. But okay, so they are expected to go 11-7. But I don't know if that's really going to be the case with Hedman out and this Diastu. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. If he's out. So I don't think Tampa's really going 11-7. So let's find, here we go. So our highest exposed money-wise is Jack Hughes. Then we got Darren Radish, Kucherov, those guys you'd expect. And then Utah coming in there. Cooley, Sergachev, Gunther. Gunsel also coming in. Vasilevsky, our highest exposed goalie, chewing up a big portion of our entries. Let's see stack-wise. Mostly 4-3s, but we got some of the 5-2s and the 6-mans in there. Utah coming in, not surprising. No, I'm a little surprised Jersey isn't higher. They've got the higher total, but I guess the price just isn't right. Maybe the price on those value guys on Tampa is making them really stand out. So we're getting a lot of the Tampa in here. Then you got that Chicago. I mean, Chicago is going to be a really good value. The projection is not great, but it's a tad higher than Buffalo, a tad higher than Philly, and a tad higher than New York. Let's make sure that total is actually the case. You know, SaberSim is giving us average totals and could be a little bit higher on a team sometime than the market. But let's see, Rangers. Yeah, I mean, Rangers have a slightly, just a smidge higher total than the Blackhawks. Same with the Flyers, not the Sabres. So SaberSim's a little bit high on the Blackhawks, but it makes sense. You're just going to have to watch out for that late news. So keep an eye on that. It's going to prove. I mean, there's early news, there's mid news, there's late news on this slate. There's going to be a lot to look out for. So what do we say we're going to do? We took a look at how we're going to run our process. Remember, you can get all of that at TrueDFS.com, so check it out. There's really great packages, and you could do everything I did there, and the price is right? Like the price is not much more than you'd pay for just SaberSim, so check that out after you like and subscribe. But okay, so what are we going to do? What we said is, let's take a look back at yesterday. We had some subs do really well. Hopefully they did well in their Sklansky box too. I ran for some showdown late. Let's go to hockey on yesterday's main slate. And I know Scott McCarty did really well in the hip check. He almost took it down. G-Lugs was saying, well, why don't we look at all different contests? So we will. We'll see what grades well in the hip check. Then we'll see what grades well, let's say in the flagship. Then we'll look at some single entries. Where's the hip check here? Hip check. There we go. And to control F it. So the highest sim ROI lineups, 4-3s, 5s, 4-3s, 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 4-3s. There's a 5 with the one-offs. A 4-2 gets in there, 3-3-2, 3-3 gets in there, 3-3-2 gets in there. So some of those getting in to the top, which is unusual compared to what we've seen in the past. But for the most part, 4-3s and 5s, 5-2s. We're not seeing 6-mans on yesterday's slate like we had seen in the past. A lot of 5-2s in there. But you do get the 3-mans in there. But then if you look at negative ROI lineups, it's all this kind of uncorrelated stuff. 3-mans, 3-2-2s. Let's go towards the middle in ROI. Let's get like what's like right on the cusp. Not too low, not too high. We know that the really low ones are going to be uncorrelated. So I don't know. You could tell me what you make of this, Cheetah. I know you're going to watch. You said you watch later. To me, most days we look at it, we see the heavy correlation at the top, and we don't see as many of the 3-3s and 3-3-2s. Now, maybe that's because it's a bigger slate and a bigger contest. I don't know, but we are seeing a little bit more of it today. But if you look at just sort of the middling negative ROIs, it's all the 3-3 stuff. The 4-mans, the 3-3s, the 4-2s. So to me, it says, look, that it's not just that there's a ROI ceiling with correlation that we see, but there's a bit of an ROI floor. And that those top ROIs, just you need to get in the correlation. So there's the hip check. Let's go back and see again. Let's see what Scott's lineup that won. What the ROI was. So he won, your whole portfolio is not going to be plus EV. Scott had a negative EV lineup in a 4-2 that ended up almost taking it down. So I don't know, you could do with it what you will. This doesn't change my mind. Just looking at sim ROI, you still see way more correlation than you don't. In the top 10 lineups for sure. So it doesn't change my mind at all. I think correlation is king. So much 4-3, 5-2, 4-2-2. Here's a 3-2-2, but you got to go down to start getting these. But you do get them. You can build plus EV lineups, but I don't think you're going to get many. And I think it's like pick your poison. You're going to get as many negative EV lineups in there as you are positive, and you're much more likely to get more plus EV lineups if you go with the 4-3s and above. But who knows? That's what it's been like day in and day out. Let's see some other contests. We wanted to look at different price points, but let's also look at different. Let's look at different entry sizes too. So let's look at price point and large entry in the flagship. So you get a 3-3-2 in the towards the top and a 4-2, but still mostly highly correlated lineups. Here's a 2-2-2 that grades well. Of course, it's a SaberSim built 2-2-2. Relic's a big SaberSim user. So I don't know. I mean, this still says to me you could build some of these, but you're just as likely to have them be in the dregs of the ROI as you are on the plus EV side. And those ceiling ROIs are all correlated. So, I'm still liking what we see from that. Now let's look at what I play usually. I didn't get to play last night, but let's take a look at the 3-3-3 and see what graded the best. These are, again, we've seen correlation really matter, and we see it here. I mean, you get some 4-2s, but 4-3s, 5 and above, really doing it. Here's a 3-3 that grades plus EV from One Drop King. Let's see what some users played that we know, whose games we respect. Let's see what Squid's portfolio is like. How do we look at all of his lineups? Can we tag and see him? He played 5 in here. Is he tagged here? No. Okay, let's sort by user. You could pick the user you respect the most. To me, him being a SaberSim user too helps. for comparison. But there's a lot of good players, a lot of ways to skin a cat. So let's see what kind of lineups he's playing. 5-2, 4-2, 4-3, 3-2-2, and a 5. Last time I'm sorry. That's not quite right. 5-2, 4-2, 4-3, 5-5-2. Oh, we had this happen last time where it disappeared on us, but that's okay. So there you have it. I mean, we're still seeing highly correlated lineups at the top. You could say, okay, there are some 3-3-2s, and there are some 2-2-2s even that show up as grading well, but how many are grading poorly? And how much of your pool do you want to dedicate to that when you're going to water down your pool with a lot of negative EV lineups? You capture an ROI floor by playing 4-3 and above. And I think it's still just showing the way to go, but it was a little less pronounced on this slate, we have to admit, than we've seen on other slates where the 5-2s and the 6-mans and the 4-3s are really popping. So there you have, we can go back to it for a sec, but no need to, but there you have it. There's a look at some of yesterday's top ROI lineups. Look at what we're doing today. Utah kind of being the chalk, but getting a lot of our portfolio with them makes sense given the projection. So Utah looking good, but then a lot of news to look out for on today's slate. We went over that. So keep an eye out for that. Pop in Discord, like and subscribe to this. It helps us out. Pop in Discord to ask any questions. Check out TrueDFS.com. Also, I forgot there's a promo code, NBA2526, and it's all caps. So you can get access to SaberSim Sheets' projections, Goldie's projections, the pay dirt model for DFS and for betting. There's a lot you get. And with that promo code, it's even less than you'd pay for just SaberSim alone. So buying these a la carte doesn't make sense when you get it all in one package. Even for the first month, it's even less price than you'd pay for all of them alone. So check that out. What's up, Peter Porker? SaberSim favorite stacks. Which cheap line do we pull? Well, it looked like the favorite cheap line was the Blackhawks. They're standing out the most. You just got to watch out for that Burakovsky news. But to answer your question, who's the cheap line that it liked the most? It was the Blackhawks. It likes getting them in with chalk, of course, but we could go back to today and look at what our portfolio looked like. Peter. So for onslaughts, it's you get the Jersey, the Utah, the Tampa. You get the Utah, the Tampa, the Jersey. You don't get as much Chicago. But then when you look at the 4-mans and the 3s and the 2s, you get a lot of Chicago. And overall, they add up to our top cheap stack, by a pretty healthy amount more than Buffalo. So there's the answer to it, Peter. Check it out. It makes sense to me too. I think what you could do, if you are playing the Chicago thing, is you just get ready to go down to green from Burakovsky. So you're going to have Burakovsky in your util spot because you're not going to have that news. And so you're going to have to go down to green and leave salary on the table. Or you could just play it assuming he's out. If he happens to be out, you hit a really good, really cheap stack because green's going to be on power play 1. And then I don't know how their lines are going to shake out, but I imagine Teravainen goes up. So you still get that correlation. Bertuzzi, Bedard, Teravainen on the EV1 and power play 1. And then they just throw green on power play 1 there. What about using Philly? They're cheap. Yeah, I mean, Philly's cheap and the total is right, but they are just a tad higher total than the Blackhawks. But you could totally use them if you want to be safer, and they're going to be low owned. So you could totally get there with a cheap Philly stack, and you could put in a lot around them. Now, I think there's a little bit of Philly news with Forster potentially coming back in the lineup. We don't know how their lines are going to shake out, assuming Forster's back. But you could totally do that. Konechny, Couturier, Michkov is line 1, right? Oh, no, it's Zegras. So it's Couturier. Okay, I see. Zegras is not on power play one. So you don't get the full power play correlation with them, but like, yeah, they're cheap. You could do a lot. Yeah, Peter, you're going to have to prepare for news in this slate because we're going to get new Tampa lines. We don't know if Cirelli's in. We know Hedman's out. So the deep pairings could be shaken up too. We know Radish is going to play a lot more than he did, so he's going to be a really good value for Tampa. Then there's going to be a little bit of Forrester news in the next game. The 8 o'clock game doesn't have as much news with the Utah Buffalo. I don't think there's anything to look out for there. But then this Burakovsky news is going to be a big deal. So you're going to have to look out for news on this slate. It's going to be tough if you're MMEing, but get ready for it. Plan ahead. If you're, of course, if you're playing single entry, it'd be easier to manage, but you're going to have to look out for it. I think that's all I got today. Would you say, yes, true, and I like playing Zegras? Yeah, I mean, Zegras is good. They don't have him on power play one, unfortunately. I don't know that matters so much. Like, I don't think Philly has like a great power play anyway. But if you went Zegras, Couturier, Michkov, you don't get the full power play correlation. But let's just see. I mean, what could we do? We could always play their even strength. I mean, that's fine. Couturier. Saber is liking Chicago today as the cheap filler. At least more so than Philly. But I'll show you something. SaberSim has an average goals of 2.9 on the Blackhawks and 2.8 for Philly and New York. Now, they're all really close together in SaberSim, and they're close together in the betting markets, but it's not the case that the Blackhawks have a higher upside. Like, it is slightly higher for Philly and the Rangers. You see 2.5 minus 134, minus 132, and the Blackhawks are minus 130. So SaberSim is a little higher on the Blackhawks than the market is. So that's something you want to be aware of if you're using them. And the SaberSim users are going to get a little bit more Blackhawks because of that. So it's something to be aware of, and you might want to even out your exposure a little bit, knowing that SaberSim is a little higher than them, assuming market efficiency. That's not quite right, but like we're splitting hairs, but it is worth knowing. What's up, DGen? Thank you for your time and insight today. Good information and content. Yeah, smash the like button. Appreciate it, DGen. Appreciate you. Yeah, so you see, Peter, SaberSim has its own assumptions. This is not a big deal. It's minor, but it's resulting in getting a little bit more Chicago than Buffalo, Philly, and New York, where we might get a little bit more of them if it was 2.8 Chicago and 2.9 Philly, 2.9 New York, something like that. So, but I agree Chicago is a good cheap value. You're going to get no ownership on Green. I mean, I don't think he's going to be like a smash play or anything, but the price is right. You could just play him. Like, we could just build with Green. And just if Burakovsky's in, he's just not as good a play, but it's not like he's that expensive. And I don't think there's like amazing center value on this slate anyway. So that's another way to go about it to prepare. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Like and subscribe. Check us out. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll have a bigger slate to go over and hopefully a lot more fun. Hopefully a lot less news. A lot of news on this slate for only having 4 games. But check it out. Like and subscribe. Check out TrueDFS.com. So maybe play a bit of Philly and or Buff. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't mind Philly today. I think they're going to be less played than. My guess is they are played less than Chicago is played, and they have a very slightly higher total, and the price is right. So I think you can get away with a little Philly. My best win on the year so far was with a Philly stack, for what it's worth. So, yeah, I appreciate that, Peter. Check it out. I'll be back tomorrow. Check out TrueDFS.com. NBA 2526, all caps. Get you 30% off your first month. And with that, I am out. I wish you guys good luck, and hopefully we're talking about